The rain had been falling for hours, a relentless curtain of water that blurred the landscape into dark, shifting shapes. My windshield wipers struggled to keep up, squealing with each pass as I leaned forward over the wheel, trying to see more than just a few feet ahead. The sky was a heavy, oppressive black, swallowing the last traces of daylight. I hadn't seen another car in over an hour, and the sense of isolation was pressing in on me, a weight in the pit of my stomach. The fuel gauge was sinking dangerously low, the orange warning light glowing faintly on the dashboard. I cursed under my breath, scanning the road for any sign of life, any place to pull in before the tank hit empty. The highway stretched endlessly in both directions, slick with rain and gleaming faintly under the thin beam of my headlights. Every second, lightning flared far in the distance, revealing nothing but skeletal trees and the glistening blacktop. Then, through the downpour, a faint glow began to form. At first I thought it was a trick of the storm, but as I drew closer, the shape of a neon sign emerged, flickering in the dark. The letters spelled out vacancy, though half of them were dead, leaving gaps of shadow between sputtering bursts of lights. Below the sign, the name of the place was barely visible under layers of peeling paint and grime. Pine Rest Motel. The parking lot was cracked and uneven, rainwater pooling in deep potholes. An old Ford pickup sat hunched in the corner, mud caked along its wheels, the windshield fractured like a spider's web. There were no other cars. The windows of the motel were black and empty, each one staring back like the hollow eyes of a skull. I pushed open the heavy wooden door of the motel office, the bell above it jingling with a hollow, tired sound that echoed through the empty space. The smell hit me immediately, a thick, stale mix of damp wood dust and something faintly metallic, like old blood or rusted iron. The room was dimly lit by a single flickering fluorescent bulb overhead, casting long, uneven shadows across the cracked linoleum floor and the faded wallpaper curling at the edges. Behind the worn counter stood a man who looked like he belonged to another era. His skin was pale, almost ghostly, stretched taut over his gaunt face. His eyes, glassy and vacant, met mine without blinking. He didn't smile or acknowledge me beyond the barest nod. "Need a room." His voice was low and hollow, lacking warmth or any hint of hospitality. I nodded and told him I just needed a place to stay for the night. He slid a heavy leather-bound guest book across the counter toward me, its cover worn smooth from years of use. The pen he handed me felt oddly cold, as if it had been stored somewhere icy. As I hesitated, his gaze locked onto mine, sharp and unsettling. Then, almost as if warning me, he said, "Don't wander after midnight." His words hung in the air, heavy with meaning, but left unexplained. I tried to brush it off with a nervous laugh, asking why. His reply was a simple chilling, because that's when they come out. The old man's voice was flat, but carried a weight that made my blood run cold. He handed me a tarnished brass key marked with the number 6. I took it without asking any more questions, but a knot had already formed in my stomach. The unease in the room was palpable, and I realized I wasn't just renting a roomie, was stepping into something much darker. The night thickened around me as I settled into room 6, but the feeling of unease only grew heavier. the air inside. The room was stale and cold, as if the walls themselves had soaked up decades of forgotten sorrow. The wallpaper hung in tatters, curling away from the damp walls, revealing dark patches that looked like stains, maybe mold, or something worse. The single lamp flickered intermittently, casting a restless glow that made every shadow seem alive, stretching and shifting just beyond the corner of my vision. Outside, the storm raged on, rain drumming against the window in relentless beats that seemed to echo the growing tension inside. I tried to calm my racing heart, but then I heard it. 3 slow, deliberate knocks at the door. My breath caught, and I hesitated, gripping the doorknob. Peering through the peephole, I saw only empty darkness in the hallway, but the flickering light revealed a shadow stretching impossibly long along the wall before disappearing around the corner. Unease tightened its grip, and I locked the door behind me. The silence that followed was suffocating until a new sound began, a faint, scratching noise like nails dragging slowly over wood. Then came whispers, barely audible and seeming to come from the walls themselves, voices murmuring, "Leave before morning," I called out, voice trembling. But no reply came except the cold stillness. Then a voice whispered from the bathroom mirror, soft, wet, chilling, calling my name. I hadn't told anyone my name since arriving, yet the voice spoke it clearly. Daniel. Fear rooted me to the spot. The shadows around the room pulsed as if alive, growing thicker, darker, pressing closer with every heartbeat. I turned to the bathroom sink, where the faucet began to drip not with water, but with thick, dark red liquid that pooled steadily below. The air grew colder, and the whispers intensified, swirling around me in a chorus that seemed to fill every corner of the room. Shapes formed in the shadows, flickering at the edge of my vision, watching, waiting. Then the clock in the hallway chimed midnight, and the door creaked open slowly, revealing only a void of darkness beyond. Soft footsteps echoed down the hall, too many to count, moving closer with every passing second. The hallway transformed before my eyes, shifting from a familiar corridor into a nightmare realm soaked in blood and darkness. Each step I took echoed hollowly, swallowed by the oppressive silence that pressed on my chest like a weight. The walls, once dull and cracked, now pulsed faintly, as if they were breathing skin stretched taut over something grotesque beneath the surface. Faces began to emerge, pressed against the wallpaper as if trying to escape, pale, distorted, and twisted in eternal agony. Their eyes stared blankly at me, mouths open in silent screams that I could almost hear in the thick, suffocating air. I wanted to run, but my feet felt glued to the blood-soaked carpet that squished beneath each step, sucking the sound from my heels. The doors lining the hall were all wide open, revealing rooms filled with shadows that moved independently from their sources. From the darkened thresholds, figures began to appear, horrifying remnants of human life, yet not fully alive. Their skin was pale, stretched thin over protruding bones, some missing eyes, others with gaping wounds leaking thick, dark blood that pooled and oozed onto the floor. They moved with jerky, unnatural motions, limbs twisting in ways no living body should. Their faces bore broken smiles, grotesque and chilling, as they shambled forward with the slow certainty of death itself. Blood dripped from their fingers, leaving slick trails along the walls as they reached out, grasping for something unseen. I stumbled backward into one room, the stench of decay overwhelming my senses. In the center lay a pile of bodies, half-rotted, twitching in a horrifying dance between life and death. One of them, a man with half his skull missing, lifted his head and grinned at me, exposing jagged, blood-stained teeth. His tongue flicked out, slick and red, as he crawled toward me, leaving a dark trail of blood that smeared across the floor. From beneath the bed came a cold, clammy hand that gripped my ankle, icy and strong, pulling me down just as a headless torso lunged from the shadows. Panic flooded every nerve. The hallway stretched endlessly, the lights flickering wildly overhead as bodies pressed against the walls tried to break free, their pale hands clawing desperately at the wallpaper like trapped souls desperate to escape eternal torment. I could feel their cold breath on my neck, their hollow eyes boring into me as I ran toward the only hope, the exit that seemed to drift farther away with every frantic step. Morning came with a heavy, oppressive silence that swallowed the motel and its secrets whole. Deputy Collins arrived just as the first weak light of dawn broke through the clouds, his boots crunching on the gravel parking lot where my car sat, abandoned and silent. The air was thick with the smell of damp earth and something else, something faintly metallic and sickly sweet. The Pine Rest Motel looked like it had been frozen in time, untouched for decades. Its windows were dark and empty, the neon sign above flickering feebly but failing to spark life into the forgotten structure. Inside, the lobby was coated in a thick layer of dust, the guest book resting on the counter as if waiting for someone who might never come back. The pages were yellowed and brittle, worn thin by the countless hands that had signed in over the years. But the last entry was fresh, stark against the decay. Daniel Hayes, October 12, 1978. The ink looked almost wet, glistening faintly in the dim light as if it had been written moments ago. Deputy Collins flipped through the book, his eyes narrowing in disbelief and confusion. There was no sign of me anywhere, no footprints in the gravel, no luggage in the rooms, no trace of a struggle or escape. It was as if I had simply vanished into thin air. The police searched the motel thoroughly, but all they found were empty rooms and lingering shadows. The story of the Pine Rest Motel had been a whispered legend for years. A place where 13 guests had mysteriously disappeared on a cold October night in 1978. Those guests had never been found, their fate a chilling mystery that haunted the town. And now, with the fresh entry bearing my name and that same ominous date, the nightmare had come full circle.
Please like and subscribe channel Fear Frequency for more horror stories. Thank you.